Hi, welcome to Fish on Fridays. I'm Al McCauley. Today I want to talk about one of the greatest saints in history. I know I say that kind of thing a lot, but it's absolutely true with this guy. He's often been referred to as a second Christ. He's that important, he's that powerful, and I'm talking about that guy right up there, my patron saint, Saint Francis of Assisi. Francis was born in 1181. He's going to die in 1226, so 800 years ago. But boy, what an impact he's had. I bet if you ask 100 Catholics, who's your favorite saint, or just to name a saint, he's going to be in the top three every time. I mean, he's a huge, huge influence on our church and has been. When I do these episodes of Fish on Fridays with Emily Shimoleski, I probably half or more about saints. I love to teach people about the saints. And I really like the idea of picking saints that maybe are a bit more obscure. People might not have heard of, or if they do know them, they might not know much about them. So I've done episodes on Saint Hubert and Bibiana and Fiacre and all these different saints to try to educate people. And I sometimes leave these heavy hitters alone because I'm assuming most people watching this know Francis of Assisi. But you know what? His feast day is October 4th, and I'm taping this right around that time. So I'm going to try my best. And listen, like any saint, I'm just going to scratch the surface. There's so much to these people that really is worth your taking the time to investigate further if you feel motivated to do so. This is the proverbial toe in the pool kind of thing, to try to touch on some of the highlights of his life, and hopefully it'll inspire you to want to learn more about this guy. But let's back up again and look at the man's life. Again, born in 1181 in Assisi in the hills of Umbria in central Italy. He's born to Pietro Bernardone, who is a cloth merchant, a textile merchant, very wealthy. And so Francis is going to grow up kind of a spoiled kid. He's going to be, sing songs to the ladies in the town. He's a troubadour, and he's going to party with his friends, and he's going to have he's going to attempt to be a knight. His dad wants him, it furnishes him in a horse and all of the trappings of being a warrior. And he goes off to fight in a battle, and he gets sick, and he has to convalesce, so he comes home. But he's trying to live this life that's expected of him. And what he really wants is to know God and to love God. And when he comes home from after this illness, from this battle, he does that. He goes off by himself to remote places to pray with God and to pray to God. And it's in one of these instances that he's praying at the church, at the chapel of San Damiano, when the cross, the crucifix that he's praying in front of, speaks to him. Christ speaks to him and says, "Francis, repair my church, which you can see has fallen into ruin." And so what he does is he wants to get rocks and repair the chapel of San Damiano, which is kind of fallen into ruin. It's decrepit. And so he goes and he takes some of the textiles from his dad's place. He sells it, gets money, buys rocks, and starts to build this chapel. Oh, what does that do to his dad? His dad gets unbelievably angry at him. In fact, they have this very tense moment where the dad drags him in front of the bishop, in front of everybody at the town square of Assisi, if you can imagine this, and demands that Francis pays restitution. Francis very famously strips naked, and he says, "I want nothing from you, Father. You have everything. The inheritance is yours. All I want is to praise our Father in heaven." And so the rest, as they say, is history. He dons a threadbare cloak, and he goes about preaching to people. And as you can imagine, two things are going to happen. Some men are attracted to this lifestyle of simplicity, of poverty, of really trying to see God in all things. But a lot of people, I would suggest most people, probably think he's nuts. And so he has to go and get permission from the Pope. And in 1209, he does this. He travels to Rome and he gets permission. And that's a story in and of itself that I don't have time for, but it's a cool story. But he goes and he meets with the Pope. The Pope gives him his blessing. And now in 1209, he can start his religious order called the Poor Brothers, the Little Brothers, the Friars Minor, if you will. After his death, of course, we're going to refer to them as the Franciscans. But he's going to start this religious order, and he's given the ability now, because the Pope has blessed his order, he can go into churches and preach. And this is where the movement starts to pick up steam. He really has this uncanny ability to attract people to him, to help the poor. And he is what we call a mendicant, a beggar. He begs for his food. He begs for anything that he's going to take in for sustenance. He owns nothing. And he typically gives that food away to others. I want to back up a little bit. I kind of glossed over something here, and I want to make sure I mention it. And it's widely considered, if Francis was to have a conversion moment, it's this moment in his life when he is on his horse and he encounters a man who's riddled with leprosy, which was a very contagious disease at that time. And people were outside of the city if they had it. They were ostracized. And the story is that Francis was initially repulsed by the man's grotesque features, but then something melted in him and snapped almost. And he got off his horse, moved with pity and compassion. He went up to the man, embraced him, and gave him coins. And we refer to this as kissing the leper. And the idea that Francis faced his fears, he faced the worst of humanity in terms of sickness and was able to overcome it with God's grace. And this, again, put him in a trajectory to want to help the poor and the sick. And these mendicant friars, these beggars, are going to go out throughout the world, and they're going to really change the dynamic of how the church is, that the church is not just in a building somewhere, that the church is in and among the people, the poor, the sick, the marginalized. And that's all Francis, man. He's going to be the person who starts that. Now, he gets help from another friar of a different tradition from Spain named Dominic, and I did an episode about St. Dominic a little while back you can check out. But these two men are going to be instrumental in changing that vocation in the church, where people live a life outside to preach, to teach, to help the poor and the sick. So it's a great legacy that he starts. Now, Francis is well known for his stigmata, the wounds of the crucified Christ. This is another chapter from his life that's worth looking into. In 1224, he's going to be on a retreat praying at Mount Laverna, and he's going to receive a vision of a six-winged seraph or angel, and that is bearing the cross of Jesus on the cross, and it embraces him. And when the embrace ends and the event ends, the ecstasy events, the mystical event ends, he's going to be left with the wounds of the crucified Christ. And this is really going to bring about great admiration for Francis in his own time, but also bring about great suffering physically. Coupled with the extreme penances and fasts that he did, he's going to start to go blind. He's going to be unable to do physical things anymore. But this does not stop him. He wants to continue to praise God, and so he does this by writing. Something called the Canticle of the Sun. He writes poems and love letters, if you will, to God, praising God through his creation, through Brother Sun and Sister Moon and the like. And it's a fascinating lesson for our time, because Francis is considered the patron saint of ecology. I mean, who hasn't seen a Francis bird bath or bird feeder, with the little animals? Even this back here, he's got, holding a bird. He's preaching to the birds, and he's got animals, bunnies, and whatever around him. That's very typical. But I think the lesson is important, that we don't praise the creation, we praise the creator. And that's what Francis really draws us to love God and to praise God through his creation. Don't just praise the creation. That's very important. We sometimes make gods of things, including ourselves, unfortunately, instead of praising the person, the God that gave us those things. So something to think about, maybe something to take to prayer and to contemplate and meditate about. But even in his old age, he's going to be able to do that and gift us with this wonderful way of looking at God and approaching God. As I said, he's going to die in year 1226, and he's remembered every October 4th. You may take part in pet blessings and things of that nature, because that's, again, Francis. That's his thing, being in nature and with animals and whatnot. But like I said, a powerhouse saint, somebody who I've just scratched the surface on. I would really encourage you to do some research if you feel called to do this, to look into this great man and see what aspect of his life can really influence you and help you to become a better prayer, a better person of humility, somebody who goes out into their world to kiss the leper, to embrace those people on the margins of society, and to let them know that they are loved, let them know that they are children of God. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful. If you know or love somebody named Francis, maybe you want to share this with them. If you'd like to, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. But either way, thank you for tuning in every Friday for Fish on Fridays. Until next time, please be good to each other, and God bless.